Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught! Jelani Woods! Touchdown!
Three-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that?
Galloway drives all along the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Thanks a lot for joining us here on this Tuesday, 29th of August. Appreciate everybody joining us on the Andy Moore on the hotline as well. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio powered by Andy Moore. Just go to andymorehonda.com and get more to your door. And the great family of restaurants in and around the Bloomington, Bedford areas from the Wow Food Group. Great places like Hank's Pizza Mac. Hoosier Hank's, where you can get pizza, tot bowls, mac bowls, all kinds of great things. But that's a whole family of incredible great restaurants, including Chop Shop, of course, where you can find Inside Indiana Football with Don Fisher. Tomorrow night, the first installment is at 7 p.m. Hello and welcome aboard today. Looking forward to another great day. Mike DeCourcy will be with us, Chronic Hoosier. Mike Nizelek from the Bloomington Herald-Times. It is week one coming up. Plenty to talk about in that regard. Everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline as well. However you're following us, we appreciate you so much. Whether you're on radio on 97.7 The Ref, always the right call down in Evansville. AM 1230, 104.7 WJOB, the voice of the region in Chicagoland. WJOB, we appreciate you guys over in Fort Wayne. Friends listening on The Fan, 1380. Fort Wayne's sports station. And they have all kinds of things lined up with 10 caps tonight. And don't forget, you can always catch Brett Rump right after the show, right after us. So make sure you keep it tuned right here. How's everybody doing? I see Pete talking about the college pickup. Yeah, don't forget about that. Let's see. I think I put that in. I even made a banner for this, and then I screwed it up. It's not there anymore. Well, how about that,
That's
John?
okay, though. Excuse me. As I come in with a scratchy voice. Pete actually has, he sent a comment early on that already has everything.
There you go.
And he did mention that it's a straight up win-loss, no spread for this.
Yeah, that makes it a heck of a lot easier, I'll tell you. But there's looked like there were 10 games. I remember 10 games you picked. So didn't cost anything. Just jump on and get her going. Just have a little fun, make the season go by. Hello to everybody. Hello to Fred jumping on. Easton, the Easton Assassin. Kent is up in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Bob down in my old home of Georgetown. Danville, Kentucky. Heath checking in. Pete. Cicero, Indiana. Hello to Mike. Robert down in Evansville. I got a lot of them memorized. John, Southport. There's the truth is on already from down in Evansville. Hey, Mike, how are you doing? Let's see. Thoughts on the Athletics College Basketball Top 25. We'll talk about that. Ross. Dan Feeney, now Chicago Bear. Oh, he's got a mullet going. Is that right? Well, good for him. Sean is in Muncie. How are you, sir? Appreciate you. Guys from all over the place, we appreciate you guys. What was the question? College basketball top 25. Well, first of all, any top 25 right now is semi-ridiculous. Basketball, it's just a guess. You've got, I'm not saying every team. I'm not saying that you don't know. I'll take, for example, easily, Indiana. No idea what they're really going to be like. I know that fans have these great expectations. I know that they have a lot of talent, but I don't know what they're going to be like as a team. I'm not saying that I think that for any reason I think that they're not going to be good. It's just that I don't know where. I know where I think Purdue is. They're way the hell up there. I know what they have. I know what they're going to be like. Michigan State, same with them. We've talked numerous times. Hell, there's other teams in the Big Ten that I know more about. I feel Wisconsin, but that's not exactly answering your question. But it's these votes early on are carryovers from last year and just what people think is going to be, because there's just so much change. The truth pointing out you got 55 days for IU basketball teams starting. Tannis jumping in from Northwest Ohio. Tannis says the new top 25 should be Georgia and the rest to be determined, but I think Georgia romps that easy schedule. Talk about? Yeah, I talked about that yesterday. Hey, Herbal. English. All right. I love it. Great down in English. Back down in my neck of the woods, closer at least. Herbal, how are you? We appreciate you. Yeah, Georgia has the god-awfulest easy schedule. I mean, it's just dumb. Man, I've got a little cold, I think. Yeah, it's now we're talking football here, so you guys are bouncing back and forth. But yeah, that's a whole nother deal. The SEC, their schedules. Yeah, it's they're going to waltz, but that's okay because they're obviously probably a playoff team. So you get to the playoffs, which they're going to get there regardless, I would think. But they're not going to be tested. They're not playing the toughest teams. James says, bold prediction. And James, we appreciate you. I haven't seen you on here before. IU football hangs with and leads Ohio State 10-7 after the first quarter, then doesn't score again and falls 49-10 at home to start the season. That's not laughable because that has happened. Actually, I believe the last time it was on a Thursday that Indiana opened with Ohio State and you had Sports Center here. That pretty much happened. It went through the third quarter. I believe it was like 21-22. And then they lost 42-22, something like that. It's going to be interesting. It's the first game of the season for everybody. Ohio State has a new quarterback. They don't have C.J. Stroud anymore. Not that they don't have uber talented quarterbacks. You remember when they won a national championship and they used 3 different quarterbacks that year. Crazy. Yeah, I let's hope that Indiana can hang with Ohio State. If they can just hang with them, that's great news for the rest of the season. No one is expecting anything crazy in that game. But you want to see competitiveness on the line. You want to see capability on the offensive line. If you're an Indiana fan, you want to see that they can move the ball, that they can run the ball, that they can protect the quarterback to allow him to throw. There are just some simple things that they can build on. Nobody expects Indiana to win this game, so it's how you're playing with house money. You can use this as a whole lot of different things. I'm not sure how much you get to learn playing against a team like this right off the bat, unless you can catch them off guard. Ha! To be king, you gotta beat the king. Well, that ain't no lying there. Robert asking, how long can you hang with the big boys? There's just a depth difference. Ohio State, Michigan, those teams are so deep at each position, especially. And that's the thing that Jim Harbaugh, I think, has done. He has completely retooled the offensive and defensive lines of Michigan. He has beefed them up. He did what he had to do. They were so weak. He's turned them around. I mean, you have to acknowledge that. People have to acknowledge that. He's done a hell of a job there. But young Bill jumping on today as well. How are you, sir? We appreciate you. Harbaugh says, as long as Indiana goes out there and do some of the little things right and gives the fans something to build off of, he'll be happy. That's how you're gonna have to view this game, because it's in essence it's the truth. It's like that's exactly what I just said. What are they able to do things? Or are they functionable? Do they look like they are in a cohesive unit? Those are the things you want to look for. Forget about the success of it. That stuff will come later when you're not playing the baddest team around. Plus, you can build off. If you see something you can build on, man, that should give the fans ample reason to support the team. Go up to Indianapolis and do not let Indiana be outdrawn by Louisville at that game in Indianapolis. Dana says IU needs to make whomever is quarterback at OSU and then turn him into Joe Germain 2.0. Dwayne, jumping on as well. I hope everybody's having a great start to the day. We certainly are. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio as Mike DeCourcy will be joining us from the Sporting News. Back with more, brought to you by Hank's Pizza, back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market for I missed that one, daggone it, James. That's a good one. Man, I got a head stopped up.
Excuse me.
Man, I don't have time to get coffee, but I'm going to make some.
You got 2 minutes.
I can start it. I can start the process. Start the process.
Good morning, Mike.
Morning, John. I see Jim's looking his sharpest. Absolutely.
He is.
That's as handsome as I've ever seen him.
He went to go brew some coffee.
See, need coffee for I keep him up with my enthusiasm.
I tell you what, I'm trying to cut down on my coffee consumption. I've gotten to the point to where I'm drinking 3 a day. I'm trying to lower that.
Yeah.
I think it's causing some minor stomach issues.
Oh, well, you don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. "30 seconds, Jimbo." He's not too far.
At the golf club at Eagle Point, students can play for the rest of 2023 for just $299. That's right. Play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, August 29th, and it does not get better than Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. How are you, sir?
Jim, I was sitting here thinking I'm gonna have to carry the start of this segment. Where do I take it? Because you were out on your coffee run, but I underestimated you. You had your timing down like you were Noah Lyles at the 100-meter dash in the World Championships.
Not the first time, baby. It's not the first time. These are very handy to have, though, let me tell you, because I can hear everything that's going on. But yes. It's really funny. When I was first starting in my career, I was in television and I was anchoring overnight news at the CBS station in Louisville. And there's a count that would give you a countdown every time. And it was so weird. It just was natural. It was just easy. It was odd. Even today, I'm like, I don't know how that happens, but it was like, it's like your brain just absorbs it and does it automatically somehow. And I don't, but trust me, there were some times where you're racing there. But my favorite story ever, of a good friend of mine who's actually I'm thinking of right now, Glenn down in Tallahassee, because of the storm heading their way, I believe. But he worked master control overnight that night when I was doing this deal. And one night I had my head down on the desk. The camera was just mounted on a post out here, and it would come on automatically. It was computer generated. And I slept through one of the breaks, and I looked up and I was just like, holy crap. And I go running back to the back, and I'm like, please tell me you did not let that come on. I was just stuttering, stammering. He's like, man, it's automatic. I couldn't stop it. He goes, I'm sorry. I go, and I'm like, oh my God, my career's over before it starts. And he's like, hey, I'm kidding. I just kicked it off to something else. I'm like, oh, dude. He got me good.
There you
boy,
go.
That would have been
Love it.
That would have been something. That would have been something. How was Mike DeCourcy doing? How was your weekend?
It was good. I watched the U.S. on Saturday. Watched the U.S. and the U.S. men's national team play in the FIBA World Cup. I watched Tyrese Halliburton playing some good hoops, and didn't do a whole lot else. But that was kind of cool watching them. And then again yesterday, the competition for them in their group has not been extraordinary. But they have some things to work out. I think they still need to get Brandon Ingram from Duke and the Pelicans. They have to get him on board because he's not played well over the course of the first two games. If they want to win the world championship, the definitive world championship, by the way, they need to get their starting lineup in the same sync where their second group is, the one led by Halliburton and Austin Reeves. They've been fantastic, but the first group has sputtered a little.
I was talking yesterday about how hard this has to be for those players that are playing in this to play basically year-round. By the time they get done, it's going to be almost time to go back to the NBA season, and that's got to wear on those guys.
To an extent it does, Jim, but honestly, basketball players have always been the sort, they find the time off. Usually it's in June. I can tell you, one of my things I tell my wife is every now and then we'll go on vacation and we'll bump into an NBA player. And I always tell her, if we are vacationing where the NBA players are, then we're in the right place. That's what I tell her. And so we've done that about 3 or 4 times over the course of our marriage. We're bumped into NBA guys. And so usually in June, they get their downtime. And in all honesty, they want to be playing. They work really hard to stay in shape and to improve in July and August. And so the fact that they're playing these competitive games, there's more pressure, obviously, than what they'd face if they were playing in a summer league, which sometimes players will do, or in a high-level pickup game, which have long gone on the UCLA campus over the years. They absolutely play. It's what they do. So this is probably more stress because of the fact that there's pressure, but it's also less stress because you're only playing about 18, 20 minutes a game, especially for the U.S. players. Guys like Luka Doncic, they might play a little bit more because their teams are so dependent on them.
And then how does this benefit the players and their teams in any way, you think, with them playing all throughout this summer, playing this type of competition? Because some of it's not great, but some of it is tough.
Yes. There's been talk of a FIBA bump kind of thing. That guys, look at Austin Reeves, for instance, and the way he's playing for the U.S. You can't tell me he's not coming back to the U.S. after this, presuming it continues in this vein. And we've now played, I think, 5 exhibitions and 2 actual tournament games, and he's been sensational. And I think he has to come back to the Lakers really even more confident than he already was, believing that. I mean, he showed he can compete at the high NBA playoff level last year, but maybe he goes in next year and says, I can't just play at that level. I can dominate at that level. I mean, not LeBron dominate or Doncic dominate, but a high level ability to take over moments in games. I think that is something that he may bring back to the Lakers from where he is now. And if you look at college, I have to believe that Zach Edey playing for Canada, or Keisei Tominaga playing in Japan at home for his national team, that has to be good for them to bring back to the United States and to play in Division I next year.
How about the Bahamas?
The Bahamas are not in there. The Bahamas are not on. They're not playing.
Eric Gordon. This was more. This was not FIBA. I guess this was more of a pre-Olympic.
Yeah, they played some games. I watched them play against Kansas in a game in a exhibition game, one of those summer tour games, and they actually, one of the players for that team played for St. John's last year and transferred to Wisconsin and played really well for the Bahamas at times in that game. And I think, I think AJ Storr will have helped himself by playing in, you're playing against the team that many consider to be the number one team in the nation next year. And you're coming into a Wisconsin team that's hoping to be a contender in the Big Ten, and playing well in that game and having good moments in that game, I think has to help you going into the Big Ten season.
Speaking of the Big Ten and the Big Ten season, it is a gigantic question mark once you get past Michigan State. It's Purdue and Michigan State, and then it's like, okay, I don't know. I don't know what Wisconsin has. They look like they got some stuff. I don't know what Ohio State has. They should not have been as bad as they were last year, and I don't expect them to be. I expect them to be up this year. Maryland, they just couldn't win on the stinking road last year for whatever reason. They have been recruiting well, so I'm like, you got them. I know all about Indiana, but I don't know about Indiana. So there's, and I'm sure Illinois. There's another team that I've left out. And I'm sure that there's another team.
Northwestern brings back. They did lose a key player.
All those guys.
Don't overlook what they lost, but they bring back a lot. Yes. From a team that got to the NCAA tournament, won a game, played highly competitively in their second game. So I think that's another team that you can't overlook. Boo Buie is back now and coming back as not a question mark, but an exclamation point. And Brooks Barnhizer, I think he's a guy that could be a really highly productive scorer. Maybe not the defender that his predecessor was, but a much better scorer. I think Brooks could average 16 a game and make their offense easier. Offense was never easy for that Northwestern team. But if Brooks can come back and average 16 a game or so, and I don't think I'm maybe 15, 15, 16. I don't think that's too much to ask from him. And if I'm right, then maybe they're not quite the defensive team they were a year ago, but being a better offensive team maybe offsets that a little bit. And then they're in the hunt again. So I don't think, I said this a year ago and I was wrong. And a lot of people said this. A year ago, we said it won't be as deep, but it'll probably be better at the top. What are we saying now? It won't be as deep, but it'll probably be better at the top. I feel really strongly that, Purdue, I don't know that Purdue will be better at the top than they were last year. I think they'll be better.
Well, that's my question is Purdue, they should be better. They have everybody back.
Yes.
And especially those freshman guards,
yes,
who that was their Achilles heel last year. And if they have developed and they've been playing a bunch, they played over in Europe, yes, which is a great training ground. If those freshman guards are not playing like freshman guards anymore, and I was going to ask you, how the hell is anybody going to stop Purdue? They could barely beat them last year.
Well, remember, Michigan State was right there in their games with Purdue last year. At home, they nearly beat them. So I think that
Indiana swept them.
And Indiana swept them, yes. Now, Indiana's a much different team than they were last year. Doesn't mean they're significantly lesser, but they're much different. So, but the players who were part of that can at least go confidently into those games knowing, yeah, it's really hard to deal with that guy. He's 7'4" and skilled, but we did it twice last year, so we can do it again. So I think that they can feel good about those games. So I think Purdue will be better. And I still, I wonder if they have the kind of talent that that NBA first round guy that wins you the championship. But I still think they can make the Final Four. I think they can win the Big Ten again. I think they'll be terrific. Michigan State is the team that I keep looking at and saying I think they can win it out of the Big Ten. It's been since 2000, and the Spartans were the last ones to do it. I guess with the way leagues are moving around now, Maryland also won one in 2002. So that's on their record, so to speak. But I think Michigan State could be the team that ends that drought, whether you want to set it at 21 years, 22 years, or 24 years. It's still a drought. And I know that there are a lot of people in the Big Ten who'd love to see that ended.
Well, not only that would be great to see for Tom Izzo. I'll tell you, he has been. Has there been a more consistent coach? I can't think of a more, because I have some. Bill Self has done great, but I also know that there's that little bit of Adidas stuff in there. Tom Izzo, I see him as just. He doesn't do that stuff. He hates it. He speaks out about it. He has done it the right way and cleanly. And man, he has been as competitive as anybody from way back until now. It's still there. And it would be really cool to see him win one as he is on the sunset part of his career, I guess you'd say. But not that he's going anywhere. But it seems like he's been around forever. And
well, he has the individual longest streak of NCAA tournament appearances. No coach has made more consecutive NCAA tournament appearances than Tom Izzo. Now, there have been programs.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there have been programs that have had streaks as long, but no individual coach with a streak as long as Tom's. It's pretty amazing stuff. That he's been able to accomplish. Now, I'd have to look that up. They may be the longest active streak. I think Dean Smith might have made more individual anywhere, but active for sure. Tom Izzo has that going for him, and he's got 8 Final Fours and a national championship. There's not much that he's left undone, but Tom doesn't look at it like that. He wants another. He wants to take this team. He's had some teams that had a chance. I think the 18 team could have won it, and they got a bad matchup against Syracuse's own and played terribly against it. The 19 team could have won it, just didn't play very well in the Texas Tech game in the semifinals, but they were right there. But they've had a few along the way, and I think they have the right mix this time, and we'll see how it goes. And I think another thing, Jim, about Michigan State that I think is important, Tom has often overscheduled his teams, and I don't think it really helps. I don't, especially when you play in a league that's as competitive as the Big Ten.
Have they ever started out the season not playing a top 5 team?
Well, you do have that Champions Classic, so you got to deal with that. But last year their schedule was ridiculous. I mean, they went from I think they went from PK. They went from the game against Kentucky to another big time game. Then they went to the PK 85, and then they came back and they played Notre Dame and in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. And by the time they played that game, they were ghosts. I mean, they had nothing. They went out on the floor and had absolutely nothing against Notre Dame, and they end up getting hammered by a team that was really not good. I mean, Notre Dame was better at the beginning of the year than they were at the end because of injuries, but they weren't a good team. This schedule is much more manageable, and I think that'll help because you get plenty of challenges in the Big Ten. You play 20 games. With the way the Big Ten has been going, you're lucky if 3 of those games aren't super competitive. It used to be in just about any league, you'd have a half dozen games that you could show up and play, especially at home. You could show up and give a B+, B-, C+ effort and win. And maybe you wouldn't win the way you'd want. Your coach would yell at you and come into the press conference and talk about how bad you played, even though you won, but you'd win. And in last year's Big Ten, there were probably, for every team in the league, just about, there was probably one, maybe two of those games on the entire 20-game schedule. So you don't need to be climbing mountains in November and December. You need to get your team right and get some things done, obviously, to help your seeding, but you need to get your team right for that challenge that you're going to face in January, February, and early March.
We've got to take a break. The great Mike DeCourcy is with us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We'll be back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether it's
Yeah, baby. It's sports season. It didn't feel like it. Week 0 just did not. It wasn't even. This was the dumbest week 0 out of the 2 that they've had. Which
I think they've had
week
3.
0.
I could be wrong.
Is it 3?
Yeah, it's been going on
You're
for
right.
a little while. Yeah.
It's just I get it why they're just trying to make more money, but last year at least they had. I watched Northwestern and Nebraska play in Ireland last year.
Yes.
I didn't give a crap about watching Notre Dame wipe Navy off the planet.
Nebraska and Northwestern was surprisingly very close and a good game, though.
It was a good game. Yeah.
Warning to America's enemies. Warning to America's enemies. They only wiped the football team. The Navy's still out there.
Yes. Yeah, they didn't land, apparently. They should have just landed on the shore and came off of the ship. That maybe it'd been a little bit more intimidating. But that's a cool thing, doing that, playing that game over there. But if you're going to go to that much trouble, make it a good game.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're showing another country the sport, what the hell are you doing there? That's dumb. Now,
I think the point there is to show that the Irish are awesome because they're also Irish. So they should root for Notre Dame.
Well, Irish are awesome. Irish people are awesome. I will agree with that. James Patrick Coyle will agree with that all day long. Donegal, County Donegal is where my people are from.
Donegal. Where is that? West Coast?
I think it's on the north. Yeah, I think it's on like northwest, maybe, I think.
I got to look at that because that might not be far from where my people are from.
It's County Donegal, I think. That way they call them County First.
Let's see. Well, that's really up there.
Yeah. Northwest Ireland in the province of Ulster. The homeland of this Irish sept was in the barony of.
All right, here we go, guys. Starts with Garnish Catering, serving all of Bloomington and surrounding areas. Garnish Catering is waiting to help make your next event one to remember. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of Wow Food Group. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday, August 29th. I hope you are enjoying this unbelievably nice fall weather we're having now, as it was an oven. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News with us. It had been an oven, man, and I was like, wow, it's just too brutal. And then that storm came through last Friday or whatever, and it was like, it's been heaven ever since, of course. But have you been doing anything to enjoy the weather? Do you get out? I know you don't play golf or anything like that, but tennis, anything? You do anything like that?
I take walks sometimes. I did not gotten that opportunity yet.
You and Rick Bozich.
Yeah. I used to run, but my back doesn't allow that anymore. So I'll take walks and enjoy the weather that way. But I have not had that chance yet because I had the I'll tell you this real quickly. We have these two birds. And we have this fan, a ceiling fan, but it's not like a normal ceiling fan with the blades. It's more contained. So these two mourning doves have come 3 times to our house and built a nest on top of the fan and raised their baby birds, and then they take off. And then you kind of have to clean up after that. And so that was my assignment over the weekend, the cleaning up. We're delighted to have them. We call them Jack and Diane. That's their name. That's the birds' names. And that's the 3rd time that they did that. It's really cool watching the birds grow up. It takes about a week, and then they're ready to take off. But it's not as cool when you have to go clean up after that.
No, they're very messy. Harbaugh commenting back about Purdue that we mentioned this, that they have to come in with Final Four expectations. I think anything short of a Final Four for Purdue has to be utterly just incredible disappointment for a couple of reasons. Number one, they've lost to an average of a 14 seed the last 3 years, but they have not been to a Final Four but 2 times in their program history, the last coming in 1980.
Right.
And this team is without question beyond Final Four capable.
They are certainly, yes.
Some teams that you're like, okay, well, they can make it. No. This team is beyond capable. They're definitive that they should be there. Not being there, something is going to happen.
Well, I mean, the first thing that they have to do is they have to take care of their business, the team construction, role definition, all of that. They have to get that right going into the year. And then they have to be ready to start earning a number 1 seed from the beginning. And the reason I say that is because if you want to make a Final Four, for instance, you're a Midwestern team, Kansas is a Midwestern team. Well, somebody like you don't want to be in the same region as they are. So you have to make sure you differentiate yourself, whether it's from Kansas or just you make yourself too good so that you're both number 1 seeds or whatever. So that part of the regular season is really important. You have to excel in the regular season. And then when they get to the NCAA tournament, and they will, I believe they have to approach the tournament, especially the early rounds, with a different attitude. I think they need, I've said this multiple occasions, they need to enter those games against teams like Fairleigh Dickinson with a sort of competitive arrogance that was missing from their trip to the tournament last year, that was missing clearly from their game against St. Peter's in the Sweet 16 2 years ago. Because if you watched Carolina went into their Elite 8 game against St. Peter's and said, you know what, guys, this is not happening today. Forget about it. We're going to take care of you. 5 minutes, you're done. It's over. Nice having you here. It's a really cool run. It's over. And Purdue didn't do that to St. Peter's. And then Purdue repeated that particular mistake. You have to take every team seriously, but you don't have to allow them to in the game. You say, this ball's going to Zach Edey the first 5 times. It's going down your throat. We're dunking on your heads. And we're going to make it obvious that you can't play in this game. It was really cool that you made it here, but you can't play in this game. You're not good enough. And if you don't do that, teams start to believe that they are good enough. And they start to think, hey, how cool it would be if we could pull this off. And that's what happens. And sometimes coaches are a little reluctant to change what they do. You have to coach every game in the NCAA tournament like it's the last. Not like, hey, we'll just do what we did, what got us here, and we won't change. I think back to the first 16-1 upset, which was Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC over Virginia. And that was a game in which Virginia was first of all diminished by injury, DeAndre Hunter, one of their top players, was absent for that game because of an injury. And then UMBC came out pretty confident. They started making shots. Virginia's in a hole. And, Virginia as a team has always been a half-court defensive team. But Maryland-Baltimore County couldn't handle, even without DeAndre Hunter, the superior size and dynamism of Virginia. On a few occasions, they turned over the ball in the backcourt. What Virginia should have done relatively early in the second half was say, let's just press these guys. They're not going to be able to handle it. They're not going to handle us, and they're not going to handle the game. Let's press them. Let's get the ball back. Let's win, and then we move on, and we'll go back to being Virginia in round 2. But we got to get out of round 1 to get to round 2. And they never did. They didn't press, I think. If I remember correctly, I'd have to look. I don't think they pressed until the final 5 minutes of the game. And they were behind double digits pretty much the entire second half. You have to change your approach if it's required. You have to be willing to change your approach. What we've done to get here doesn't matter anymore. This is what some teams like North Texas took advantage of. They said, look, we're and I use this analogy all the time, and I hope people aren't tired of it. But you're used to seeing fastballs and sliders as a high-level team in the NCAA tournament that's played in a high major conference. Everybody you played against throws fastballs and sliders, metaphorically. And then you get into a tournament like this, and North Texas says, well, we can't beat Purdue playing straight up. They're going to run us out of the gym. So we're going to put one player behind Travion Williams. We're going to put one player in front of him. And we're going to dare the player we drop off to shoot the ball. And if that player makes shots, we lose. Okay, well, that's the way it's going to go sometimes. And if that player doesn't make shots, we have a chance. And that didn't happen. Sasha Stefanovic didn't shoot well against North Texas. And Purdue winds up in a close game, and they end up not executing in the end, and North Texas moves on. And so you have to be ready for that and ready to deal with that and have your own knuckleball, so to speak, if somebody throws it at you.
There's a great point that Sean brings up. So at what point do you question Matt Painter's ability? He says, similar to Kentucky, at what point are you failing with the best players or versus just playing lucky? Matt has his system that he's been uber successful in the conference. He wins a ton of games and is successful in that regard. But Purdue as a whole on the national scene, their success is just not there at all.
Well, I will quarrel with that to some extent. First of all, has there ever been a coach in college basketball who has had worse injury luck? Trending toward a number 1 seed late February 2011, Robbie Hummel at Minnesota blows his knee out, and all of a sudden you're not trending toward a number 1 seed anymore. You're a completely different team. The circumstance in 2018 when Isaac Haas is pulled down onto the floor, the origin of the hook and hold call. They didn't have it then, but it wouldn't matter anyway because it happened. He breaks his elbow, and now you're an entirely different team in the middle of the NCAA tournament. So that's 2 circumstances there where they could have been a Final Four team and wound up not being because of injury. There's the fact that they were one free throw away from clinching more or less an opportunity to go to the 2019 Final Four against the eventual national champion. Ryan Klein makes one free throw, and they go to that Final Four almost certainly. Instead, they wind up in an overtime game because of a very fortunate bounce and some good decisions made under pressure by Virginia and some not so great decisions made under pressure by Purdue in those final seconds. And they wind up giving up a tying bucket, and they lose an OT. So no, I don't. I question as I have right here. I've questioned particular decisions or tactics or lack thereof in certain circumstances. I thought that last year they needed to go into Fairleigh Dickinson with a different attitude because of having seen what Carolina did right after the Boilers played against St. Peter's. And Carolina just went out with a completely different approach, that it was going to be over in 5 to 7 minutes and it wasn't going to be a 40-minute game. And that's how it turned out. Absolutely. And I thought that they needed to go in against Fairleigh Dickinson and do the same thing that Carolina had done and not what they'd done themselves against St. Peter's. So I'm willing to question that. But he's one of the, or if you're going to ask me if I'm going to question his ability, my only question about his ability is how high on the list of the best coaches in college basketball he is. Top 5, top 10. I'm not going much farther than that. He's that good. How many times has he gotten to those levels? With I think his highest recruit ever was Trey Kaufman-Wren. They don't get the 5-star guys at Purdue. It's the nature of their program. They don't get those guys. They get the next best guys. Another thing that you have to look at and admire about Matt Painter and the Purdue program. Everybody else is, we got to get these transfers and we got to do that and we know we're going to lose X number of guys after this year. How many players transfer out of Purdue? It almost never happens because their players want to be in that program. They understand how well they're being coached and they want to be there. They want to play for Matt. I think that's something else that needs to be valued in this era, that continuity of talent. It's college basketball the way so many people say they want it to be. So, no, the fact that they've had a couple of rough runs in the NCAA tournament, I'm not questioning him as a coach. Questioning decisions or whatever, yeah, okay, everybody's open to that. You can question things John Wooden did or Coach K, but I'm not questioning him as a coach in the little. Like I said, he's top 5 or top 10, and the lowest I'll go is probably I'm not even going there. He's one of the 10 best coaches in college basketball, and you can figure out who else fits on that list.
Mike, what's up next for you, sir?
Well, we're continuing to I haven't written anything yet about the FIBA World Cup, but we will be as the games get more intense. So I'll be working a lot on that with Steph No, our NBA writer. Excited about that. I think it's going to be a really fascinating second round and knockout round when we get there.
Hope if so. Be looking forward to it. Make sure you're giving Mike DeCourcy a follow. If you're not, you're missing out. Go to the Sporting News as well for all of his content. Mike, can't thank you enough, sir.
Thank you, Jim.
You bet. Have a great day. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market? Yeah, I disagree with Mike on that. Not that he's not a good coach. I think Matt is a good coach, but you get beat 3 years in a row by and the injury thing, I'm like, whoa. I can list 3 injuries real fast that probably cost Indiana a national championship.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I say that all the time. But Cal can't coach. He's just a freaking car salesman. And of those 9, the majority of them came in the first probably 8 years when he was being fed these recruits. Yeah, I saw someone talking about Indiana losing another 4-star or whatever. What was that? Yep. Sign up for the college pick'em. Don't forget, go to ESPN. Get those in this week. Straight pick'em, no spread. Thanks, Robert. We appreciate you. Let's see. Mike, how are you today, sir? Rudy. Damn. Julio Rodriguez is en fuego. 4-hit games. 5 4-hit games in the past 10 games. Man, first time that's ever happened since 1900. That dude's
All right, here we go.
Just jacked his average up.
Contact Amy Rhoda with Rebesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Metalworks Brewing Company. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, August 29th, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Hope you're having a great start to your week. The weather's been absolutely incredible. Can't beat that. The ACC was supposed to have another meeting on Stanford and Cal and SMU yesterday, but that was canceled because of an apparent shooting on the North Carolina campus. Unfortunately, after more than 3 weeks of discussions about expansion, the ACC presidents were scheduled to meet Monday night and potentially take a formal vote on adding Stanford, Cal, and SMU. That was first reported by Yahoo Sports. The finances would be key to final approval. Multiple conference sources say SMU is willing to accept no ACC media rights revenue for at least 7 years. What the hell? How are they going to make money? And Stanford and Cal are willing to join as partial members, receiving around 30% of a revenue share initially, freeing up a pool of more than $70 million of new money to be distributed among the members. Man, they're just, wow. The rats are jumping off the ship. Taking scraps. The finances would be key for final approval. Multiple conference sources say I just said that. The ACC invitations would be important lifelines for Cal and Stanford. Lifelines is right. Whose options were extremely limited after 6 Pac-12 schools left the league this summer. They've been holding out hope for the ACC despite running into several roadblocks here in recent weeks. The league needed 12 of 15 members to support expansion, but a straw poll taken in mid-August showed just 11 yeses and 4 dissenters. The feeling across the league shifted in recent days with momentum building for expanding westward with 3 schools. As part of the ACC's long-term deal with ESPN, the network must pay a prorated share for any new members. Per the ACC's 2020-21-22 tax return, the league made $443 million in TV revenue, the equivalent of right at about $30 million per school, a number that is expected to rise modestly each year with the 3 new potential members taking far less than their full shares to start. That frees up money the ACC can pull together and treat as a new revenue source. Stanford and Cal. Stanford has potentially more national championships, I think, than any other school in the NCAA. An academic, a bastion of academics, and they're left holding the bag. Can you believe that? And then they're going, you want to talk about the Big Ten? That's laughable. Stanford and Cal are joining a conference that is strictly on the East Coast. So there's that. That's something. Well, as the conference world turns, how about that? And how about Michigan Jim Harbaugh lambasting the NCAA setup, saying the status quo is unacceptable. Speaking publicly for the first time since being suspended for the first three games of Michigan's season, Coach Jim Harbaugh used his Monday news conference to call for changes to college football's status quo. He delivered a lengthy opening statement about the need to share TV revenue with players, an idea he endorsed a year ago at Big Ten Media Days. Harbaugh also said his calls for change weren't a reaction to his own experiences with the NCAA, which has been investigating Michigan for alleged recruiting violations that occurred during the COVID-19 dead period. As a result of that investigation, offensive coordinator Sharon Moore, who also coaches Michigan's offensive line, will serve a 1-game suspension during Saturday's season opener against East Carolina. An industry source briefed on the discussions confirmed Moore's suspension was accepted by the NCAA as a part of a negotiated resolution. Quarterbacks coach Kirk Campbell will call plays on Saturday. Defensive coordinator Jesse Minter will call defensive plays, filling in for Harbaugh as head coach. But getting back to Harbaugh, he said that he doesn't think that the current system is going to survive. The status quo is unacceptable, in his opinion. The Michigan coach added that his opinions aren't related to his investigation. This is something I've long talked about. I didn't wake up this morning and decide to share this. He added that he wasn't sure what he'll do Saturday while serving his suspension, but said he might attend his son's football game. He also took issue with the idea that the 3-game suspension was a light punishment. He said, I've heard people comment it's a slap on the wrist. It's more like a baseball bat to the kneecaps or the shoulder, in his opinion. So there you go. Jim Harbaugh spouting off. But they're going to have to do something to continue to bring equality. Would sharing TV revenue with players, wouldn't that bring equality to most teams? Wouldn't that give you, especially if you're a Big Ten team, period, and everything is equal, and you're going to get that, you're going to get players that come. Look, if Indiana can have 23 of the top 50 transfers right now without that, what do you think a team could do if it had TV revenue to share? Guaranteed. Just like Michigan would have, just like Ohio State would have, just like Penn State would have. I think that's something that Indiana fans might want to embrace. That might be the greatest sweep to bring equality that there could be. I know we don't cover volleyball a lot, and this is not really about covering it, but the Big Ten is in the toughest collegiate volleyball conference that there is. And Nebraska is one of those great programs, but they are trying to see Wednesday night. So tomorrow night, they're set to take aim at a world record for the largest crowd to watch a women's sporting event. The Volleyball Day in Nebraska, as declared in February, isn't happening because Cook and athletic director Trev Albert streamed it up. It's happening because of their heritage, blah, blah, blah. Just give me the juice, man. They've drawn a crowd of over 16,000 with Wisconsin. Let's see. Wow. Are they doing this in the football stadium? Nebraska packed extra seating onto the stadium floor and added bleachers to meet the demand for. What? This is. The Huskers could not fit a larger crowd into their basketball venue, so Alberts and Cook, to get ready, they would find a way to make it happen at the stadium with football stadium, which holds 83,000. Nebraska has packed extra seating onto the stadium floor and added bleachers to meet the demand for tickets, and it sold the initial allotment of 82,900 tickets over 3 days in April at $25 a seat. So weather permitting, and the forecast looks favorable, Nebraska's team will compete before an expected crowd of over 90,000. And they're looking to top the 91,648 that attended Barcelona versus Wolfsburg in April 2022 in a Women's Champions League semifinal. 90,000 people watching volleyball. Now, Nebraska is a great stadium, but up at the top, and volleyball is like a tennis match. That's going to be just saying there's a picture of it. And not only that, they're not putting the volleyball court in the center. It's moved down towards what would be an end zone, which is odd. Huh. Crazy. Craziness. That is crazy. That's nuts. Oh, the wild card race. How are we doing in the wild card race? My Reds, my kingdom for the Reds. Just kidding. The wild card race in the American League or the National League. Of course, Philadelphia leading that in that National League East is they're 12 and a half games behind the Atlanta Braves. Okay, they're 12 and a half games back, but they are leading the wild card race. And then you've got a tie between the Cubs and the Diamondbacks. And then the Reds and San Francisco behind them. The Reds now 7 games back after at one time leading the Central Division. They've lost 6 out of their last 10. Milwaukee is on a heater, man. Milwaukee has won 9 out of their last 10 games. They're rolling. Chicago's won 7 out of their last 10. Not bad. It's really funny. The Central Division. the last 10 is not always an indication of things, but man, could this not be more apropos, this particular last 10 game set? If you look at it, Milwaukee 9-1. And I'm going down in order from first to bottom of the division. Milwaukee, of course, leading the division. They won 9 out of their last 10 games. Chicago has jumped up into second, and they've won 7 out of their last 10 games. Cincinnati kind of fading. They've lost 6 out of their last 10. Pittsburgh, they're 5-5. And then, of course, last place St. Louis, 2-8. So that really shows the difference. But Atlanta, again, look at this run differential. It's not, no one in baseball comes close to the runs they're putting up. Holy cow. So if you're a Braves fan, to be happy. But that's that. Let's see. I want to make sure I don't miss a break. Tana says you get more people to see it if you move it to the end zone. Well, but you're filling the entire stadium. So you've got the entire back half of that stadium that's further away. That's what I didn't get it. Why I didn't get it. Robert says, wow. Speaking of wow, hey, make sure you go to the wowfoodgroup.com, go to wowfoodgroup.com rather, and join the Wow Club. Monthly specials, discounts, always providing it's the best loyalty program around. We've got to take a break. Up next, Chronic Hoosier will join us. And
no Chronic Hoosier. He won't be. He's unavailable with us today. I tried to send that to you. I guess you missed it. But yeah, no Chronic Hoosier today.
All right. Up next, we've got John, the producer. It looks like. So
what a treat.
Back with more. The Reds, Tim says the Reds need to sweep the Cubs this weekend to have a chance. You're not lying, but I don't think the Reds could sweep the plate right now. Man, they're fading. They're fading. Caleb pointing out the Reds are a game and a half back of the wild card race. I think that's due to the difference with San Francisco. They've played 2 more games in the San Francisco and have 2 more losses. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Speed Radio, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway of the golf club at Eagle Point right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. So I tried asking Michael Nizelek if he wanted to come on early, but it may have been too short notice, so he may just come on at 10:10.
Well, wow. Now you know the rest of the story. Good day.
I do have a Tom Allen clip too, if you want to play it. I just got one.
Yeah. What? What the hell? Did you see what happened with Ronald Acuna?
No, I don't even know who that is.
Plays for the Braves. Two fans jumping on the field Monday night at Coors Field, and they're
Save it for when we come back. We're ready to come back. Just tell us. Here we go.
hog steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this beautiful Tuesday. Indiana Sports Beat Radio brought to you by the Rusty Gator, Fork and Ale down in Bedford with an incredible Cajun cuisine. Make sure you stop by and check that out in downtown Bedford. Man, people are just nuts. Out in Denver, Monday night, Atlanta Braves outfielder Ronald Acuna Jr. was confronted by two fans in right field during the game at Coors Field, an encounter that left Acuna knocked to the ground. It was in the seventh inning, a game against the Rockies, of course. An individual ran onto the field to take a selfie with Acuna during the game. This guy, this moron thinks he's going to be able to run out and take a selfie with a pro athlete during a game.
I wonder how inebriated he was. If he, maybe he wasn't at all.
You need to be on drugs to do something that stupid, man.
Maybe.
While security worked to pry that individual off of Acuna, another individual ran onto the field and rushed toward Acuna, appearing to make contact with him and knocking him to the ground. Acuna just sat on the grass while security dealt with the individuals. He got up on his own power. Atlanta had just scored 4 runs to take a 9-4 lead before the incident happened. Acuna did not appear to be injured due to the incident, and smiling afterwards and flashing a thumbs up sign. Said he was a little scared at first. He says, I think the fans were out there asking for pictures. I really couldn't say anything because at that point security was already there and we're already kind of tangled up. But that's plumb ignorant. I mean, you need to have the crap beat out of you first. The first thing that needs to happen is you need to have the holy crap beat out of you. And I'm not kidding. If you're that much of an idiot, oh, man. I mean, you just can't fix stupid. That's nuts. Kevin says, so it's sounding like Indiana might be playing 2 quarterbacks week 1. I disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't think that's what they are planning on doing, but here my take on what he may be commenting, or what he may be alluding to is if whoever ends up starting has a poor performance in the first couple of quarters, or maybe even in the first just couple of drives, depending on how good or bad things are going, it is not out of the question at all to see the backup come in if you need to get some sort of rhythm going, if you haven't created any yet. So that could be what you're talking about. That's not what they desire to do. I can guarantee you that. That's not what any team wants to do, unless you are purposely.
Let me tell you, that's not going to be the case. First of all, I don't know how much of a gauge. I don't even know how much we're going to be able to gauge from this game. You're not playing a normal game. You're playing up right off the bat. So whoever the starter is getting thrown to the Lions right off the bat. Unless they are just making really, really bad decisions. But
that's what I'm saying. The stresses of this type of game can cause you to play out of character potentially.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a starter, and the only reason I would see a different quarterback would be on the backside of the game if the game is out of hand, just to get reps. But I'm not sure that they don't just go with the starter the whole time to get them as much reps as possible.
Yeah, and that makes either way. I think it makes perfect sense. But I do think in some way, shape, or form, you're going to see both Taven Jackson and Brendan Sorsby. I don't know what the circumstances will be for both of those. I
don't know that that's the case. I don't know that that's true.
Even if the game's out of hand, which I do, and not to discredit Indiana, but I do think there will be a point where this game gets out of hand.
If only to protect the quarterback, but like I said, this is your starter needs reps. Indiana's first string starter, he needs reps. He needs as many reps as possible. So I don't know if we're in the fourth quarter and the game is way out of hand. I don't know, because Ohio State's not going to be playing their starters at that point. And so that's a great time for your quarterback to get some reps. So why waste them on a guy that's not the starter? I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see. But I there's going to be a starter, and I don't expect to see him replaced.
And that's the way it should be. I hope that's the case. We'll see.
Sean's asking, was Taven Jackson as a backup quarterback at Tennessee running scout team QB against the number one team defense? He may be more prepared for anyone. It's a great question, but I don't know. I don't know what all he got to do down there. I know he was pretty far down the line. It's very possible. Very possible. But I still I'm going with my pick, man. I'm not changing.
I think we'll see Taven, but we'll see.
I say Brendan Sorsby. Tana says fist in the air for football mercenaries of ODIU. Herbal says the game is going to be out of hand by midway through the third, but leave the starter in the whole game to help him build some confidence against the OSU bench. Exactly what I was suggesting. He needs reps, man. Whoever that starter is needs as many reps as possible. And unless there's worry of injury, I think the starter stays in and plays all the way through to get those reps to run the offense. They've not been able to do that. And you don't waste those opportunities because he's got to play a game the week after, a game that they definitely will expect to be expected to win. So, unless something drastic happens, I think you're going to see the starter the whole time for Indiana.
Well, there you go. Let's dive a little more into Tom Allen and the depth chart. Excuse me. That Indiana has on certain positions. This is a short little clip from his presser yesterday.
Yeah, I think, kind of throughout camp, as you guys have asked and we've talked about different positions, I think the area that kind of sticks out, numerically is our defensive line and just having some new guys there and the way those guys have performed during camp. So just excited to see those guys play. I think that's going to be one of the strengths of our defense. And then, our receiver room has a lot of depth to it. I like that room a lot. Running back room, I feel the same way about, and getting those guys through camp, working through injuries, and nothing serious there, but just everybody has little things along the way that you work through. But I feel good about where we're at with those guys on those positions. And
that was Tom
And he
Allen,
goes on.
And he goes on. And he goes on. Notre Dame, Purdue, Indiana. Of course, Notre Dame expected to have the best season, without question there, as they are ranked. Purdue and Indiana. Who's going to have the best season between those two? Purdue coming off the coaching change. I have not looked at their schedule.
They have a pretty tough non-conference schedule. I'm going to pull it up here and take a look. I do believe they play the Oregon State, which is they're expected to be really good in the Pac-12 this year.
Well, they play Fresno State, who is Kalen DeBoer's former team. Then they play, these are their non-con games. Then they play Syracuse. Now, both of these games
I guess
are
they
at
don't
home.
play Oregon State. That's my fault. They must play them in the future or played them previously.
Their first, Purdue's first. Oh, that can't be right. Oh my gosh. 5 out of Purdue's first 6 games are at home? Am I looking at that right?
Let's see. 4 out of 5, not 5 out of 6. 4 out of 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What about Ohio State?
You missed Iowa, which is before that.
Right.
On the road.
Out of 6.
That would be out of 7 at that point.
Okay. So 6 out of 7.
No, 5 out of 7.
5 out of 6. 5 out of 6.
5 out of 7. Virginia
Okay,
Tech's
who's
on
the
the
7?
road, and Iowa's on the road.
Oh, you know what? Virginia Tech is not listed on this schedule for some reason.
Okay.
That's why. I remember that from the other day. I don't know why. When is Virginia Tech?
Week 2.
Okay. I don't know why. Yeah. All right. They've got Fresno State listed at September 2nd. Then it jumps to Syracuse on the 16th. So they go to Virginia Tech?
Yes.
So still 5 out of 7, though, right?
Yeah, and I believe Indiana has a fairly similar type of homestand. I'll pull theirs up as soon as I can get a hold of it. But Indiana, let's just look at their first. So their first 3, and you have the neutral site against Louisville.
That's a hell of a deal for Purdue. Purdue's going to, let's see.
Indiana's first 5 out of 7 with the exclusion of the Louisville game are home.
Yeah, that's
the only 2 road games they have, Maryland and Michigan, in that homestand.
Well, that'll give the start to the season a lot of flavor for both of those programs. And that's a win. And Virginia Tech is terrible, so Purdue should start the season 2-0. You're at home, you go 3-0. Wisconsin, I don't know what they've got this year. You've got Luke Fickell. I'm going to go with Fickell. I'm a little fickle.
Big Fick.
3, 4, no, 3-1. So that'd make them 3-1. Hey, Illinois is tough. They're losing that game. 3-2. They go to Iowa. That puts them 3-3. Ohio State, 3-4. Nebraska, I'm going to give it to Nebraska, 3-5. Michigan, 3-6. Minnesota, I don't know what they have. Northwestern, I'll give them that, 4. Purdue is, I don't know. They could be anywhere between 4 and 6 wins, I pick. I'll look at it a little bit more, but yeah, I'm with you. There's my pick. My pick is in. Sean says he hates secret starters. Soon they won't be able to warm up to keep the secret of the kickoff.
Oh, I got to bring something up about that. Why? What's the whole deal of keeping the starting kicker a secret? Is he just trolling people like for the fun of it, or is that what's all that about?
No idea.
I think that has to be a troll job. There's no way that.
Because does anyone care?
Exactly.
The only thing that anybody cares about is whoever that marches out there puts the damn ball between the uprights. Now, yeah, because there's no tactical gaining. You can't say, oh, well, he sure kicks better in the wind than this guy, or he sure kicks better to the north than that guy. It's not like a quarterback where you can actually say, oh, this dude can throw the ball deep. He's accurate, or this guy can run. He's so fast. There's actually tangible things to bank on there. So, yeah, no, I don't know. But, yep, we're on the same page there, man. I say it's going to be Brendan Sorsby.
We're only days away from finding out.
What sounds more like a quarterback name, Taven Jackson or Brendan Sorsby?
I'll tell you what, between those two, definitely Taven Jackson, but on the roster, the best name that Indiana has on their quarterback depth chart is Blaze McKibben.
Oh, yeah.
JUCO transfer, I believe he's a walk-on, but what a name, Blaze McKibben.
Hey, speaking of quarterbacks in IU, Nate Sudfeld, former man, the last non-secret starter in Indiana. Well, no, I guess that's not true. Patrick Ramsey was after that. But anyway, Nate Sudfeld,
starter, I feel like.
Yeah.
Other than maybe Peyton Ramsey.
Yeah, I mean, he just super. Well, he's been in the NFL since he left Indiana. Unfortunately, tears his ACL in the only series he was in the preseason game, the last preseason game, and he is out for the season. So hate to hear that. And ironically, the guy that's his kind of replacement is Louisville's Teddy Bridgewater, who wrecked his, I don't even know what he did to his knee when he received that injury. How long has that been now? 4 years ago?
It's been a while.
But his was a complete non-contact injury. He was just in practice, no pads, just going back, stopped a throw, and just destroyed his knee. But he's back. He's back, and he's actually the number 2 guy in Detroit. So there's that. We've got to take a break. More Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming up. Michael Nizelek from the Bloomington Herald-Times will join us. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Morning, Michael.
How's it going?
Going good. Jim hopped up to grab some coffee, I believe, or use the restroom. Could be either or.
No worries.
Hey, what was the deal with we were talking about this a moment ago. What was the deal with Tom Allen saying he's not going to name the starting kicker? Is that kind of a joke, or was that just
no? That they're not gonna reveal it. I mean, they didn't put a depth chart in the game notes either, so it was just
that's interesting.
That they're not putting anything out before the game, essentially.
Huh? Because we know he always does it with the quarterback. I thought we were thinking maybe he just did it with the kicker just to mess with people.
No, I think it's just literally that they're not giving anything out.
Well, that's interesting.
Unless that starts showing some positive traction, I think that just really annoys people.
Fans, but I just think that they are more focused on what other teams are doing, and the standard now is, since basically Jim Harbaugh got to the conference, that most teams don't put their depth chart in the, release a depth chart essentially.
How have you been? What's new with you?
I'm good. Not much. Excited for the season to get here. Should be fun.
It's here, baby.
Couple more days.
It has arrived.
All right, here we go, guys.
That's right. Play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Indy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. It's August 29th, joined now by Michael Nizelek from the Bloomington Herald-Times, IU Sports Beat Writer. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Jim. How are you doing?
Good. The football season has arrived. We are, week 0 last week, but that doesn't really count. Week 1 upon us here, and more closer, Indiana will host the Ohio State Buckeyes to start the season off. So it certainly will be starting with a bang. Indiana not naming their starting quarterback, although Tom Allen did say that they have made that selection and they know who that is going forward. Not naming anything. We were talking about some of that. I don't, other than the quarterback position, I don't know how much that matters, but whatever. I think it's going to be Brendan Sorsby under center. Not that matters, but that's my guess. I think that's going to be the guy. But more importantly, in that game, in the last segment, we were talking about, if let's say that this game starts to get away from Indiana and they're in the third or the fourth quarter, I think they leave whomever that starter is in there to get as many reps as possible and just let them take every rep that they can.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you can make a switch, especially when the game's sort of, within reach, but even late. I mean, if it's the last maybe 5 minutes and you just want to protect the health of guys, I could see somebody sitting, but they're going to give the guy meaningful minutes or reps because they need it. Either one who wins the starting job doesn't have many career reps under their belt, and so they're going to need to get them, even if they're down 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns. This is a learning opportunity.
And the one question I do have, I wonder later on, as Dexter Williams becomes fully healthy, boy, that's going to add a wrinkle to this, because there's no way you can ignore what he brought to that offense last year when he was in.
Yeah, and I think Tom Allen has gone out of his way to mention Dexter too, like saying like we have a plan for him, in 4 to 5 weeks when he's going to be ready. They kind of put it around like October, I think, even before midseason. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he's come back for some devastating injuries, so it'll be interesting to see how quickly he can kind of get in game, get to the game speed and get back to normal. Because, practice is one thing, games are a different animal. But, I mean, Tom Allen has mentioned, Dexter Williams will be part of this offense in some way, shape, or form when he's ready. And even if he's not, the starter, you could imagine them trying to take advantage of some of the things he did last year in a package or two, if he's not, come back to the starting lineup. Yeah,
with obviously he is not considered much of a thrower. He threw, I think, two passes in the Michigan State game, and those came at the end of the game. So if he's in, you're thinking Wildcat or something along those lines, which could be predictable, but not necessarily when you have – the good thing is you have Jalen Lucas and Josh Henderson back there also. So there could be some deception with him, and I could see that, and that would not – I mean, I think that would be a smart move by Tom Allen, but he definitely moved that offense. That was the most shocking win that IU football's had for me in years. So it's going to be really, really interesting when he returns, because he obviously gives them another element, another something that Indiana has to have all these little extras that they need, that they can get. Jalen Lucas is one of those, but so is Dexter Williams now, and it's getting him back is going to be pretty important to this offense. And while I don't expect Indiana to do much against Ohio State, if they seem to be improved at every level, the defensive backfield, the both lines, and by better, they weren't that far off from being a decent team last year. They just couldn't run the ball or protect the quarterback. And it was just that simple. You can't be competitive with anybody if you can't do that. I think that they are going to be able to do that this year, not necessarily in this game, but afterwards.
Yeah, and I think their goal, I mean, what you're trying to do is win the 50-50 games, right? Like the games against Louisville, Maryland, Illinois, Michigan State, Rutgers. All those games are the ones on your schedule where you say they're a coin flip essentially, especially the ones at home. You should be able to feel good about the roster you're putting up, that stacks up against those teams, and there's not much difference. And so I think with improved line play on both sides of the ball, you mentioned the offensive line, but defensive line as well. You're looking at trying to win those games. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State are still you're just going in with a disadvantage talent wise against those teams. But the rest of the schedule you look at, I mean, is there any other team, maybe Wisconsin a little bit, but in terms of, talent wise, India is not at a huge disadvantage. I think they feel good about their chances in a lot of those games, just because of the way they use the transfer portal this offseason.
Well, and speaking of that, the next thing I was going to say, Don Fisher on with us each Monday was on yesterday and gave me a stat that is astounding. He said of the top 50 players, transfer portal players expected to play, Indiana has 23 of them. And I'm like, I'm not sure where that number came from, but I was like, what? If that is true, that is a crazy number, and could give Indiana fans reason for optimism.
Well, I mean, their haul was significant. I mean, and essentially, I mean, what they replaced with in terms of, that they very few returning starters, homegrown returning starters, but they landed a lot of returning starters from other teams. A guy like Andre Carter is a perfect example. So it's a way to add experience without, sort of building it to try to flip some of these position groups that were struggling. I just think that they did land some nice pieces that if they can get into the, EJ Williams on offense is another example. Just if those guys pay off, then I think you're looking at, trying to get to that bowl game, that 6-win mark.
With there being another quarterback race, no matter who it is, like I said, I think it's going to be Brendan Sorsby that gets the call. But whomever, if there's the slightest bit of struggle, or the fans are going to be calling for somebody for the other. Like I said, it doesn't matter who it is, it'll be reversed. And I hate that for this quarterback, because that's added pressure. They already got a ton already. They don't need the extra, but that will be there if there's the slightest hint of not getting the job done.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to give them like 4 to 5 weeks here to sort of spread their wings and see where they're at, and then kind of evaluate. I wrote about that this morning because Walt Bell talked about, naturally that there's going to be that, from the outside, not from the inside, that, when they struggle, there's going to be a natural inclination. The most popular player on the team is the backup quarterback, especially with 2 young quarterbacks, both redshirt freshmen. And he said they're going to have to fight that. And it's a mentality. It's about having confidence in yourself. It's about knowing that you won the job and that you don't have to worry about every mistake you make. But he said that's going to be a daily fight for those guys, whoever won the job, to sort of try to overcome that. Because, like you said, fans aren't going to be patient. And opening the season with Ohio State, you're probably going to have some mistakes going against a really, a defense that Walt Bell said has 11 players that are probably capable of playing in the NFL. So it's a tough spot, but they're going to have to weather the storm and try to get through that Indiana State game, and then try to kind of build from there.
Jim Harbaugh talked yesterday about revenue sharing for football players, which I think is inevitable. But is revenue sharing the thing that would be the greatest equalizer? Because if you look at the Big Ten, if is it the same amount of revenue that's being shared with each team? As long as it works that way, is that going to give teams like Indiana, whether it's Purdue or Indiana, even Rutgers, the opportunity to start to raise their programs because they'll have money to actually players can come to Indiana and get money then, just like they could go to Michigan or wherever?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how detailed Jim Harbaugh's proposal, or, I guess he had a binder. I don't know how far in the weeds he got with, how he did it. And I don't know, what the system would look like. I mean, I think that's what the debate is, right? How do you do that? Do you carve out the Power 4 eventually now because the Pac-12 is going away? Is that sort of where the revenue goes? And then, is it equal between all those teams? Is it based on your share of the playoff money? I don't know. I don't know how that looks. And, I just think every step you make, it probably creates more disparity between the haves and have-nots. But being in the Big Ten, you're probably going to be, in the group of haves. So, there's already systematic advantages. You can pay players for their academics now. You could, the NIL stuff. So, I mean, you're already ahead of a lot of teams in the country, but that would that system, I'm not sure what it would look like. And I don't know, does it just favor the teams that, like Michigan or Ohio State's, or does Indiana get that equal share, like you said? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that'll be key, because right now Indiana is not the school that the NIL is geared towards football. It's geared towards basketball. It's a basketball school, always has been. And so the NIL, there's no way. I know it trails greatly in as far as the two. But if that were to happen and you had that to share and it was equal, that would be very, very interesting to see what would happen within the Big Ten, man. That would be great to see different teams each year Like the NFL has each year 4 teams make the playoffs that did not make the playoffs the year before. It is a great rotation, and I'd love to see that in college football. In the Big Ten, I'd love to see someone besides Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State be the guys at the top. It would be fun to see that rotation. I know fans would love it, especially if it was their team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that's that would take a major shift in things. I don't know that you're ever going to get to that point. I think parity, it's just not for college football. I just think that there are going to be teams that have built-in advantages. Even just with the tradition and sort of people are going
coaching.
Yeah, it's at times, and people are going to pick football schools over non-football schools with that tradition sometimes. So you're always going to have an advantage there. I mean, I don't know, to get to parity, I just don't see it in college football. I mean, I think you'd need to massively change the landscape, and I just don't see that. There always is going to be those 4 or 5 teams at the top. I just feel like.
Oh, Mike, you're raining on my parade, man.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm kidding. All right, so you've got a piece out now on Waltville and Indiana's offense.
Yeah, and wrote about too the Indiana feels like they're going to face 2 quarterbacks. The flip side of that, Tom Allen, Matt Guerrero both talked about that yesterday. Talked to some more players today, and got some stuff coming up. I talked to Scott Dolson as well after you interviewed him last week. You did a nice interview with him. Or was it 2 weeks ago? Either way, you talked to him, and I got him later that week. So some stuff from that as well.
Absolutely. Make sure you look for that in the Bloomington Herald Times or follow Mike on Twitter. What's your handle on Twitter, Mike?
Yeah, at Michael Nizelek. You just didn't want to say the last name.
Oh, I've been saying it correctly, man. I think I've been saying it right, haven't I?
I don't know. Nizelek.
Nizelek, yes. Niziolek. So make sure you give him a follow. Man, I can't tell you much. We appreciate you. We'll see you on Saturday as the football season gets underway.
And then we'll have a game to talk about next week, review. So that's exciting.
Yeah, and then hopeful. Then you don't have the dragon to slay after that. So it'll be
we'll be able to talk about a named quarterback. That'll be fun.
Oh yeah, that's right. Do you have an idea who you think it is?
I predicted Jackson, but I'd said
it's a coin toss, man.
I wouldn't be surprised if it goes either way. So
yeah, I picked Sorsby. But I would not be surprised either. So we'll see. Thanks a lot, Mike, for joining us. We appreciate you. Mike Nizelek from the Bloomington Herald Times. Make sure you're giving him a follow and following his content at the Bloomington Herald Times to keep up on all things Indiana. It's been another great show. I cannot thank Mike DeCourcy enough from the Sporting News as he joins us each and every Tuesday. Chronic will be back with us next week. John, the producer, thank you for keeping us between the white lines. I think we got a little bit more. Do we have a little more time we have to fill, John?
Yeah, we still got a couple minutes.
Oh, okay. I don't want to cut it short. I could have kept going with Mike. Man, never do that. I never cut it off short. But great to talk to him from the Bloomington Herald Times. But yeah, I'm going with. But it doesn't matter. It's really just becoming. It's like it's an irritant. It's like one of those gnats in the room. When there's a gnat in the room. You're like, where is that thing? Can't catch it. Sean thinks that not naming a starter, a quarterback, gives the image the staff isn't sure. Well, they weren't sure, to be honest with you, because it was a race. It really now this time I've said that this truly was a quarterback race. This was not that they were BSing. They did not know. I promise you, they did not know between Brendan Sorsby and Taven Jackson, and they've just and in the decision they made, I guarantee it was a tough decision. Now, before when they've done all this, I always said, baloney, it's going to be X, Y, and Z, and it generally always was. This really was a quarterback race.
1 minute,
and that's a good thing. That you have 2. And not only that, Dexter Williams, like I said, So that's going to be, but that's going to be the thing when Dexter Williams comes back. Be very interesting. Look forward to coming back tomorrow. Who's on the program, John Boy?
We'll have our friend Dylan Sin from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, Kyle Nednrip from the Indy Star, and Rick Bozich from WDRB.
Man, what a lineup. Can't wait. Can't thank you guys enough. We can't, without you, there's no reason for us to be here. Appreciate you so much. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.